Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nurul Najwa binti Fitri and my metric number is 056409. So poetry is defined as literature that evokes a concentrated imaginative awareness of experience or a specific emotional response through language chosen and arranged for its context or meaning, sound and also rhythm. So poetry is conveyed in a language that is sensuous, emotionally charged and enriched by imagination rather than perceiving or expressing things in the language of science.
Now, I will explain about definition of poems. Poem is a literary work that often in verse and usually dealing with emotional or descriptive themes in a rhythmic form.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Wan Nur Afiqah Farhah, binti Wan Muhammad, metric number 056984. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, poet means a person who writes poems, while based on the dictionary.com, poet can be best defined as a person who has the gift of poetic thought, imagination and creation together with eloquence of expressions. There are a few greatest poets of all time such as William Shakespeare, Emily Dickinson, Robert Frost, Edgar Allan Poe and many more.
Hannah and I are going to be presenting on the elements of poetry. So the first element of poetry is figures of sound. So alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant sounds in a sequence of words, normally at the beginning of the word. So the example that I have taken is from Wilfred Owen's Du sais de Coromé, line 11. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling, so you can see that there is a repetition of the s sound. The second figures of sound is assonance. So assonance refers to the repetition of the same vowel sounds in the same line or sentence. So the example that I have taken is from Emily Dickinson's Hope is the Thing with Feathers, line 9. I have heard it in the chilliest land. So the assonance that occurs here is the repetition of the E sound. And then we have consonance. So consonance refers to the repetition of the same consonant sound within a group of words. Consonance usually occurs in the middle of the word or at the end of the word. So the example is from Wilfred Owen's Du sais de Coromé, line 22, calm gargling from the froth corrupted lungs. So the consonance that occurs here is the repetition of the sound. Fourth figure of sound is onomatopoeia. So onomatopoeia refers to words that represent sounds like hiss, sizzle and so on. So from the same example as before, which is from Wilfred Owen's Du sais de Coromé, so the word gargling here is used to convey the blood gargling out from the soldier's lungs. Next, we have euphony. So euphony is a language used in literature that strikes as smooth, pleasant, and also musical to the ears. From Robert Frost, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, stanza 4, he repeated the last line twice, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So this repetition is pleasing to the ears because it creates a finality and also the reaffirmation of the sentiment. And then we have cacophony. Cacophony is the language used in literature which is perceived as harsh, rough, and unmusical. It allows us readers to experience or picture the unpleasantness of a situation that the writer has described. So in the example that I have taken from Wilfred Owen's Du sais de Coromé, line 2, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge. It contains a very cacophonous diction and it contains words like hags and also sludge, which have a very negative meaning. The next element of poetry is imagery. So imagery appeals to the five senses of the readers. So the first imagery is visual imagery, which refers to when a poet is able to make readers visualize or picture something in our mind. So it may include colors, brightness. So the example that I have taken is from Walt Whitman, O Captain, My Captain, line 17. My captain does not answer, his lips are pale and still. So this line described the captain's condition. Next, we have auditory imagery, which refers to the usage of words that can make the users experience sound. So it may include music, pleasant noises, harsh noises, or even silence. So in the example that I have taken from Robert Frost, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, line 11 and 12, the only other sound is the sweep of easy wind and downy flakes. So he uses auditory imagery to describe the silence of the woods. So it allows us readers to experience or to understand the silence by the only other sounds in the woods being the sound of the wind and also the sound of snowflake falling. The third one is tactile imagery, so it refers to imagery that is related to our sense of touch. So the poet appeals to the reader's sense of touch by describing something the speaker or the narrator feels on their body. So it may include the feel of temperature, textures, and other physical sensations. So in the example that I have taken from John Clare's Autumn, line 11, burning hot is the ground, liquid cold is the air. Next, we have gustatory imagery. So the poet appeals to the reader's sense of taste by describing something that the speaker or the narrator tastes. So it may include sweetness, saltiness. So the example taken is from Wilfred Owen's Dulce de Colomé, line 23, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cut. So he described the blood gargling out of the soldiers as bitter as the cut. So a cut is a bitter tasting, half-digested pasture chewed by cattle in the farm. Last but not least, we have olfactory imagery. So the poet appeals to the reader's sense of smell by describing something that the speaker or the narrator smells. So this example is taken from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Rain in Summer. They silently inhale the clover-scented gale. So the words clover-scented gale paint a clear picture in the reader's mind about what the speaker or the narrator smells after a rainfall. The next element of poetry is symbolism. So symbolism refers to the use of symbols to convey hidden meanings and to signify qualities or ideas by giving them symbolic meanings that are different to their literal sense. So the examples taken are from Emily Dickinson's Hope is the Thing with Feathers, line 9, I have heard it in the chilliest land, and line 6, and saw must be the storm. So the words storm and chilliest land here signify or symbolize the struggles that one experiences during trying times. The fourth element of poetry is diction, so it refers to the style of writing or speaking determined by the choice of words or phrasing by the speakers or the writers. So the choice of words may be simple and uncomplicated, and they may stand for something more. So specific word choice also allows the readers to know how the speaker feels. The example that I have decided to take is Walt Whitman's "O Captain, My Captain." So words like won, done, prize, and save are used. So these are the dictions used to set the tone of accomplishment. So these words enable Walt Whitman to set not only the feeling of mourning, but also the feeling of accomplishment. I will now pass the presentation to Hannah. Thank you.
Hello and Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Nurul Hannah binti Mahazer and my matrix number is 055547, and I will talk about the next elements of poetry, which is tone. Tone refers to the writer's attitude towards a subject and conveyed through the style of writing and word choice. For example, as you can see here in William Blake, A Poison Tree, such words like angry and wrath in this stanza of the poem convey an anger and unhappy tone. The next elements of poetry is mood. Mood is the overall atmosphere and feelings of the poem that will create an emotional setting and evoke certain vibes or feelings in readers. As an example, in A Poison Tree by William Blake, the mood or the overall feelings of the poem is revenge and hatred, as we can see how the speaker ends up killing his enemy because of his hate towards his enemy. Next, I will talk about figurative language. The first figurative language is simile. Simile refers to the direct comparison between two completely different things, actions, or feelings, with the use of connective words such as than, like, or as. For example, in the poem of
Dulce at the Curb
by Wilfred Owen, you can see on the line that written his hanging face like a devil sick of sin. You can see how it compares between two completely different things. Next is metaphor. Metaphor is an indirect comparison where an idea or an action is being conveyed as something else that share the same qualities without using any connective words. You can see here in Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. In the first line of the poem, you can see an indirect comparison between hope and the thing with feathers. The next is personification. Personification is a strategy in literature that gives an inanimate object, animal, or abstract ideas with humans' feelings, powers, or attributes. In Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, by Robert Frost in the third stanza, where it says, "He gave his harness belt a shake to ask if there is some mistake." The fourth one is transfer epithet. Transfer epithet is giving a characteristic of a thing to another thing that is closely related to it. For example, in Dulce et Decoramus by Wilfred Owen, in the line that says, "Fitting the clumsy helmets just in time." The fifth one is apostrophe. Apostrophe refers to the addressing of a thing or a quality or even a dead person as if they are alive and could reply to it. You can see this in "O Captain, My Captain" by Walt Whitman, in the stanza that says, "Here, Captain, dear father." The sixth one is hyperbole. Refers to the facts in the poem that is too exaggerated for the sake of emphasis. In the poem named Autumn by John Clare, in the line that says, "The spring from the fountain now boils like a pot." Okay, next is understatement. Understatement refers to an act of describing something to being less than what it actually is. For example, in "Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening" by Robert Frost, in the line that says, "My little horse must think it queer." Next is allusion. Allusion refers to when the writer mentions something like incident, character, name, or a line that is connected to another piece of literature. For example, in "Nothing Gold Can Stay" by Robert Frost, there is a line that says, "So Eden sank to grief." Here, Robert Frost alludes a line from the biblical Garden of Eden to strengthen his idea. Next is metonymy. Metonymy refers to an act of naming a thing for something else which is closely related to it. In "Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening" by Robert Frost, there is two lines that say, "And months to go before I sleep," where the word sleep here could be mean as rest. The 10th figurative language is synecdoche, refers to the use of certain significant part to represent a whole. For example, in "Dulce et Decoramus" by Wilfred Owen, in the lines that says, "In all my dreams before my helpless sight," the word sight there represent the speaker. The 11th one is paradox. Paradox refers to a statement that at first seems like contradict itself, but then shows a much deeper meaning and logical meaning to it. For example, in "Hope is the Thing with Feathers" by Emily Dickinson, in the line that says, "And sings the tune without the words." The 12th figurative language is oxymoron. Oxymoron refers to a kind of compressed paradox where two different things are combined. Also in "Dulce et Decoramus" by Wilfred Owen, in the line that says, "Two children ardent for some desperate glory." Here you can see how two completely different things, such as desperate and glory, are combined. Next is pun. Refers to a play of word where a word with two meanings or a word that are spelled alike or sound alike will be used, usually for the sake of humor. For example, in the poem named "Design" by Robert Frost, where in the last stanza of this poem, Robert Frost used pun through the word design. Next is periphrasis or circumlocution. Refers to a say in something that is said in a roundabout manner where so many unnecessary words are used to convey a certain meaning. For example, in "O Captain, My Captain" by Walt Whitman, in the line that says, "My captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still." The last figurative language is euphemism. Also a periphrasis, where an improper word is described in a delicate term. For example, in "Oh Captain, My Captain" by Walt Whitman, in the line that says, "You have fallen cold and dead." The last elements of poetry is denotation and connotation. Denotation refers to the direct translation or its literal meaning of the words or symbols used in the poem, while connotation refers to the use of words or symbols that is expressed differently than its literal meaning. In A Poison Tree by William Blake, in the line that says, "and into my garden stole," the literal meaning of the word garden or the denotation of the word garden in the poem means a piece of land in which grass, flowers, and shrubs may be grown. But the connotation of the word garden that is used in the poem is expressed as the symbol of the heart, where the heather and wrath are grown.
Moving on to the next part, which is types of poems. In this video, we are going to share with you 10 different types of poems. The first one is ballad. It is a form of narrative verse which can be poetic and also musical. It was originally meant to be sung and often about love, but it can also be different types of themes. It follows a pattern of quatrain, which is a 4-line stanza with various rhyme schemes. One example of ballad is "As You Came from the Holy Land" by Sir Walter Raleigh. The next poem is epic. It is a long narrative poem about heroes and their adventures. The word epic derives from the Greek word epos, which means story, poem, or word. This type of poem details the journey of a hero, which is filled with obstacles and the way he managed to overcome them. One example of epic is Beowulf. Moving on to the next poem, which is elegy. It is a sad poem that is written to reflect upon death or loss of loved one. However, it can also be different types of sadness, for instance like a general sense of loss, which is not solely focused on one person. One example of elegy is an extract from Walt Whitman's poem "Oh Captain, My Captain." The next poem is pastoral. Pastoral encourages the relationship between humans and nature. It emphasizes on describing the setting of a peaceful country life. In the other words, it expresses how blissful it is to be living in the rural setting rather than the modern life. An example of pastoral is "To a Mouse" by Robert Burns. The next one is free verse. Free verse does not obligate to rules of rhyme and meter. However, it tends to implement other creative languages such as alliteration and assonance. It became popular in 1880s and rose to prominence in the modern period. One of the famous poets who mastered free verse was T.S. Eliot with his poem "The Waste Land."
Thank you, Fisha. But let's not forget that we have 5 more poems to learn. Now, let's learn about sonnet. Sonnet is a 14-line poem with a specific rhyme scheme. Each type of sonnet follows a different rhyming scheme. There are 3 types of sonnet. The first one is Shakespearean, next is Petrarchan, and lastly is Spenserian sonnet. This is an example of Shakespearean poem by Tinia Lewis, and the title is All We Will Be. As you can see, this is a 14-line poem consisting of 3 quatrains of ABAB, CDCD, and EFEF, while followed by a couplet, GG. Haiku is a form of Japanese poetry that follows a specific syllable pattern. It's made up of 3 lines, consisting of 17 syllables in total and usually includes an image from nature. Other than haiku and sonnet, we also have limerick. Now, what is a limerick? Limerick is a humorous poem consisting of only 5 lines and a determined rhyme scheme of A, B, B, and A. The first, second, and fifth line have to rhyme with at least 7 to 10 syllables. And the third and the fourth lines have to rhyme with each other, but it's only 5 to 7 syllables. Furthermore, we also have acrostic. Acrostic is a form of poetry where the first or last letters of each line create a name, word, or phrase. You can find these words by looking vertically at the beginning or end of the lines. For example, a family. F. Fiercely loyal to those we love. A. Accepting each for who and what they are. M. Matchless in our hopes and dreams for one another. I. Instilling pride in our hard-fought heritage. L. Learning about our past guides us in the future. And lastly, Y. You love and cherish the people of your heart. Last but not least, we also have ode as one of the types of poem. Ode is defined as a lengthy lyric poem which typically of a serious or meditative nature, having an elevated style and formal stanza structure is one of the characteristics for ode.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Alia binti Muzafar, metri number 056406, and I'll be explaining about theme in poetry. Now, what's the first thing that comes into your mind when someone asks you, what is theme? Well, theme is defined as the main idea or an underlying meaning of a literary work, which could be both direct and indirect. Poem expresses life lessons or merely just a statement about human nature through theme. And the idea of a theme is not fixed, it's not just one thing, because mostly it concerns of universal ideas and could relate to human nature. For example, like emotions, we have sadness, loneliness, happy, anger, etc. Moving on to the types of themes, major and minor are two types of themes in poetry. Major themes are the most significant themes of the whole poem. Major themes are basically like an idea that the writer or the poet repeats in his poems, whereas for minor theme, it appears very briefly and it may appear with other minor themes as well. Also, for minor theme, there is usually a subtle hint given through the character, setting, or plot. To give you a clearer understanding on this, I'm going to give an example. So for Shakespeare's Sonnet 116, the major theme for that poem is love, whereas the minor themes are loyalty and mortality. Theme, as I mentioned before, is not fixed, it is flexible. So here are the common themes that you may find in any poem. First one, we have love. Love may possibly be the most popular theme in poetry, and I think it's because of its complex emotion that majority of us readers could relate to. Love can also be a force of good that inspires people to be passionate, romantic, caring. But it could also be a force of bad, or like a toxic force that drives people into madness or to be possessive and even destructive. The different types of love can be reflected in many ways, such as forbidden love, unrequited love, and also family love. And of course, Shakespeare's Sonnet 116 is the example of poem with a love theme. Second one is war. Almost all war poems emerge from historical wars. And the most known war poets back then were Edward Thomas, Sigrid Sasson, and also Wilfred Owen. Now, different war poets back then, they have different views on wars. Okay, because some might express or view war something that relate to sadness, anger, but some express that war is actually something to be proud of and heroic even. A poem titled by Wilfred Owen is a very brutal war poem in my opinion. Third one is religion. It basically expresses religious worship or prayer and also longing to devote oneself fully to the religion. And usually a religious poem sometimes reflect the poet's own religious faith or thought. An example for religious poem is a poem written by Emily Dickinson titled I Saw No Way the Heavens Were Stitched.
Thank you, Nessa, for the explanations of the first three themes of the poems. So now I will cover for the next three themes, which are nature, beauty, and journey. For the poem that has nature theme, usually the poet hinted the readers with a few of nature elements such as the plants, the animals, the seasons, the relationship between people and nature, and also can be scenic locations. The example of the most famous poem that used nature theme is I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth. In the poem, William Wordsworth himself moved through a beautiful landscape and he takes the pleasure in the sights of the daffodils and revives his spirit in nature. Next is beauty theme, which comes in many forms. And it can be seen through the natural beauty, physical human beauty, beauty in spirit or actions, and also can be beauty of the city or scene. Usually, the poem is written in a very lyrical style to mimic the subject. One of the poems that use beauty theme is entitled She Walks in Beauty by Lord Byron. The beauty of the woman that the poet described is in both external appearance and her inner goodness. The last theme is journey, which one of the most widely used themes in literature. Journey is a powerful symbol that is used to represent a character adventure leading to his or her self-realizations at the end. In one way or another, the theme journey enables the writers to express the notions of the chance and choice, discovery and departure, and also the search and struggle. The poem that you can see has the journey theme is entitled Postcard from a Travel's Note by Sophie Hannah. Based on the poem, it takes place in the resort towns, whereas the writer tells a story of a travel's note, writing a postcard to send to someone unspecified about her holiday journey and how the holiday helping her to enrich and brighten her life back. I think that's all from me and my teams. Thank you for watching.